In the annals of horror cinema, few matchups have captured the imagination of fans like the epic battle between Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees in Freddy vs. Jason. Released in 2003, this crossover film brought together two of the most iconic horror figures in the horror genre, which had been in development since the early 90s but actually conceptualized in the mid 80s. Freddy vs. Jason, in my opinion, has a unique blend of terror, nostalgia, and some pretty decent storytelling, and even featuring Jay from Jay and Silent Bob. Wait, what? And you couldn't deny the presence of the film even before its release, whether it be the viral marketing campaign accompanied by a badass website, action figures, a banger soundtrack, downloading a very low-res version of the trailer and playing it non-stop right up until the film's release. And this week marks the 20th anniversary of Freddy vs. Jason. Fuck, I'm old. And in honor of this milestone, I thought it'd be fun to do my top 5 moments from the film. With that being said, let me know down in the comment section your top 5 moments of Freddy vs. Jason. Now also, I just want to give a massive shout out to Frank and Darren over at the Slaughtered Lamb Movie Podcast for the inspiration to do that. Go check out their channel if you haven't already. They do a lot of best of, worst of some amazing horror movies, and the banter is just so on point. So get comfy, place your bets, because we are going to be doing my top 5 moments of Freddy vs. Jason. Number 5, the boys' backstories. We all know the backstory of Freddy and Jason. Jason drowned at Camp Crystal Lake back in the 50s. Freddy was burned alive by a very angry bunch of parents on Elm Street after killing some of their kids. He then takes revenge by entering the kids' dreams of the parents who burned him and subsequently killing them in their dreams. But I feel with what we see on screen in terms of the boys' backstories, it's so well done. We start off with Freddy's backstory, and it's quite sick and depraved when you look at the footage of him licking the photo of the girl and putting it in his scrapbook as if it's a trophy. We see him constructing his glove, much like a throwback to the original 1984 Elm Street, where we see him constructing his glove for the very first time. And it just has that sense of dread and just sets the tone for how dark this film can be at times. Now, when it comes to Jason, we really haven't seen that backstory properly done on film. We see Laurie, our heroine of the film, see a flashback of Jason drowning at Camp Crystal Lake. Interesting side note, one of the many drafts of Freddy vs. Jason actually had Freddy abuse Jason as a kid. Freddy was one of the camp counselors, abused Jason, and to make sure he wouldn't say anything to anyone, he killed him. That is dark and heavy, and I'm not gonna lie, that's an interesting beat, an interesting motivation for Jason to take on Freddy. But overall, I feel like the footage of their origins was handled pretty damn well. Even if we got that really janky frame rate with Jason's flashback, still pretty badass nonetheless. Number 4, Jason's bed tricks. At the beginning of Freddy vs. Jason, we see the douchebag of the film Trey meet his demise at the hands of Jason, who essentially is folded in half whilst in bed. This is such an imaginative kill, and that's what I love about Freddy vs. Jason. The kills are so on point. It definitely delivers on the gore factor, the shock value. Now, this was actually achieved by splitting a bed in two on a board that would kind of go up on a hinge mechanism. Now, the actor portraying Trey, that's the top half of him, but there are some prosthetic legs on the bottom, so when he folds up, it looks pretty legit. And I love that little detail of him still clutching onto that beer right up until his demise. Now, in terms of a kill, this just sets the wheels in motion for what to expect throughout its runtime. Number 3, Mark's nightmare. So this is technically the only on-screen kill by Freddy making contact with someone. We see the character of Mark, who had a brother named Bobby who subsequently took his life, but we see Mark having a nightmare and he sees his brother Bobby, played by Zach Ward, emerge from a bloody bathtub with his bloody wrist, who then eventually morphs into Freddy. Now, originally for the effects, they were going to have Bobby spin around, his head was going to contort, and eventually he would morph into Freddy. Unfortunately, they didn't have enough money, so they just do a quick cutaway, and it's Freddy once again. I just love the way this whole nightmare plays out. We see Freddy taunting Mark with his dead brother Bobby, stalking him into the corner and throwing him against the wall and setting him on fire. Freddy ultimately using what made him the dream demon he is, fire. And I just love that message that's burned into Mark's back. Freddy's back, and slashes him in the face. Just a nice little cherry on the top moment for that kill. To me, this moment was so Freddy. Just stalking Mark, being Freddy, Robert Englund, having those beautiful Freddy mannerisms, and just being maniacal and cackling and enjoying every minute of it. Number 2, Demon Freddy. This is such a short sequence, but my god, it is so damn good. We see Kia in a nightmare trying to rescue a drowning young Jason. We then see Freddy come up out of the water, and drown him. We then cut back to the real world and we see Jason starting to drown. He then wakes up, disappears from the dream world, and that enrages Freddy to the point he turned demonic. And this makeup by the late great Bill Tesarakis is beautiful. We have a beefed up, bulked up, muscular, demonic, devilish looking Freddy with exposed teeth, sharp teeth for that matter. It's such a cool makeup. And speaking of the late great Bill Tesarakis, this hockey mask actually comes from a production-made mold for Jason's hockey mask. The mold itself was actually acquired by the great Sean Clark and produced by the great Josh Lutterman. A brilliant collaboration right here. This is limited to 20 pieces, and I managed to get number 19. It is stunning. But hey, if it's that quick little moment, it definitely makes it a memorable one. I just love how pissed Freddy can get to the point that it alters his appearance. It's such a badass makeup, and I would definitely love to have a display bust of that particular makeup. And my top moment of Freddy vs. Jason is Freddy vs. Jason. We got exactly what we came for. Unlike, say, for example, Batman v Superman, where the boys dish it out for 5 minutes, they're best mates, everything's hunky-dory. From development hell starting in the early 90s, it was well worth the wait. Like, pretty much since 1993's Jason Goes to Hell, the wheels were in motion for Freddy vs. Jason to happen. When we finally got it in 2003, the showdown between Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees was so on point. These guys tear their nutsacks off and hand them to one another. It is absolutely amazing to see these two titans of horror dish it out on screen, but the fight goes for so long. It has stages, it has different locations. We see the boys start to dish it out halfway through the film in Freddy's world. Freddy's then pulled out of the real world in Camp Crystal Lake, takes on Jason. There are elements of WWE in there, like old barroom brawls from spaghetti westerns, and by the very end, the boys are literally ripping themselves apart, with a nice little red herring at the end, where we think Freddy is dead and Jason is about to have the final swing with his machete, but it's actually Freddy, minus an arm. Jason then plunges Freddy's gloved hand through Freddy's torso. Freddy is then decapitated by Laurie, which, interesting fun fact, Monica Keena, when she was a kid, had the worst nightmares of Freddy after she watched one of the first Nightmare on Elm Street films. It got to the point where her mum actually had to put a photo of Robert Englund and Freddy up on a wall side by side, and before bed every night she had to say, he's not real, he's just a man, he's Robert Englund, that's just makeup. And on the very last day of filming, Monica Keena told that to Robert Englund and he pissed himself laughing. He thought it was the funniest thing ever. But going back to the fight, it has everything you want when you have two horror icons dishing it out. It is brutal, it is gnarly, it is bombastic and amazing to see, and it lives up to the title, Freddy vs. Jason. There you have it, guys. Those are my top 5 moments from Freddy vs. Jason. It's crazy to think this film is 20 years old, and I'm so happy we actually got it and it came to fruition. And when it's all said and done, it's actually a decent film. I think it's the best versus film we were ever going to get. It is by no means a perfect film, and it has its cheesy moments. It has moments where there's way too much exposition. Like I said, guys, let me know down below in the comments section your top 5 moments of Freddy vs. Jason. Love you guts, and I'll catch you in the next one.